Hello and welcome to Olus. I'm Diarmuid O'Marisa. In this series of videos, we're going to learn all about AI, what it is, what it's good for, how to use it effectively, and what the future of AI might look like. So in this first video, we're going to set the stage, and there is a lot to cover in this one, so try to keep up. By the end of the video, there are three key things that you should know. We're going to understand what AI actually is and what types exist. We're going to spend a quick minute talking about what it isn't and separating fact from fiction. Finally, we want to explore different views on AI. Is it a good thing or a bad thing or somewhere in between? First up, let's answer the question, what is artificial intelligence? Well, artificial intelligence refers to machines doing things that normally require human intelligence. This can include writing stories, driving cars, drawing pictures, and an awful lot more besides that. In fact, AI can do so many different things that pinning down a definition is actually quite tricky because the definition keeps changing. Early examples of AI were generally simple decision trees, where we program computers that if this thing over here happens, then respond by doing this thing. Modern generative AI, also called Gen AI, is a different beast entirely. It's not directly programmed by humans to do any specific thing. Instead, it uses extraordinarily complex mathematical techniques to figure out what to do as it goes along. This produces an end result which can feel incredibly human. This is the technology behind tools like ChatGPT and Gemini that you might be familiar with already. So defining what exactly AI is a bit tricky, but don't worry, we're going to get back to that. But before then, I think it's worth clearing up two very important myths about AI. Firstly, in spite of huge advances, AI is still not magical. There are problems it can solve for us, but there are also very definitely problems it cannot solve. And it still does make mistakes. It can be incredibly insightful and clever on some topics and say nothing but boring and obvious things on others. Secondly, and just as importantly, it's still not computers with feelings. Even though ChatGPT and Gemini can sometimes feel very human when we engage with them. Remember, this is a piece of code built by humans running on your computer. There is not a living, thinking being in there. So it's a useful tool and it feels very personal, but bear in mind that it's not a person and that it has limitations. We're going to get on to talking about some of the technicalities of AI in a bit, but before we do that, let's step back and ask ourselves a really important question. AI, is it even a good idea? AI has been criticized by a lot of people for a lot of reasons, and some critics even go so far as to argue that we would be better off without it entirely. One of the big areas of controversy is around data centers. AI systems demand enormous amounts of computing power and are therefore enormously power hungry. And these power demands are causing problems for power grids all over the world. Some single data centers now are being built that use more electrical power than the entire island of Ireland. And with many of them relying mostly or entirely on fossil fuel power, the environmental impact of these data centers is obviously enormous. And the impact on employment could be catastrophic as well, with some estimates suggesting as many as half of all jobs could simply disappear over the coming 20 years. In the education sector, many teachers and commentators are worried that AI has made cheating so easy that degrees and other academic awards are becoming meaningless. And that this generation of learners, that's you guys, will miss out on many formative learning experiences as a result of their access, your access, to AI tools. In spite of the beneficial parts of AI in education, which we will get to, one teacher memorably described AI in education as like going to the gym and using a forklift truck to lift the weights. We'll dive more into the controversy surrounding AI in a future lesson. But as we're starting to learn about the technology, it's important to understand it's not necessarily all good news. At the same time, lots of people argue that there is plenty of good news. Optimists suggest that AI will supercharge human intelligence, enabling us to be much more productive and thus allowing us to build a better world for everybody. Even as it exists today, setting aside any future advances, AI can take an awful lot of the drudgery out of many normal office jobs, freeing humans to do more creative and more productive work. And much more than just doing things faster, AI might actually enable us to do things that we could never have even attempted before. If you dream of deeply personalized medicine and education tailored to the precise needs of every single individual, AI might just make that possible. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the types of AI and how we might categorize AI. The first distinction we're going to make is between narrow and general purpose AI. Narrow AI, as the name suggests, is able to perform only very specific tasks, whereas general purpose AI can theoretically learn to do anything a human can do. Now, this is not a great distinction because tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, they blur the lines quite a bit. They can't do everything humans can do, but they can do so much that calling them narrow AI feels counterintuitive. You will find some academic computer scientists who do consider ChatGPT and Gemini to be narrow AI. That is the traditional view, but some researchers are now subdividing general purpose type AI into general purpose AI on the one hand and artificial general intelligence, also referred to as superintelligence, on the other. Under these definitions, ChatGPT and Gemini would be considered general purpose AI, but don't meet the threshold to count as artificial general intelligence. So, to summarize, our definition has now expanded to include narrow AI, which operates in very narrowly defined domains, for example, chess. We also have general purpose AI that can operate in a lot of different domains, but still falls short of human intelligence in certain areas. And finally then, we have the still theoretical artificial general intelligence. We might see this one day, but we haven't done it yet. And most people don't think it's arriving anytime soon. Even with this expanded range of terms, there are still, these are still pretty loosely defined. Sometimes it's clear where to draw the line, but equally it's often a matter of opinion, particularly as we try and define whether specific AI tools count as narrow or general purpose, or as we try to imagine what would need to happen for a general purpose AI tool to cross the line into superintelligence. I guess that if that ever happens, we can just trust the superintelligent AI to let us know. There is another important distinction we sometimes refer to, and that is between generative AI and the older classical AI. Classical AI is also known as predictive or analytical AI. Generative AI then, which is also called Gen AI, encompasses things like ChatGPT and Gemini, and can do things like create entirely new sentences which never existed before. These language-based Gen AI tools are often referred to as large language models, or LLMs, which is an acronym that comes up a lot. Other Gen AI tools can create images, videos, audio, and lots of other things as well. We're introducing a lot of new terms in this video, by the way. Try not to worry about them too much. We'll use them throughout the course, but we'll explain them again when they come up in future videos. So, classical AI systems can be rule-based, or they can use a version of the same maths-based machine learning technology that generative AI systems use. But crucially, their outputs are tightly restrained. This means that they are used to predict or to classify based on a finite or limited number of possible outcomes. They include things like spam filters, where the possible outputs are spam or not spam. Chess engines, which can only make moves which are defined in the rules of chess, and product recommendation engines, which are only making recommendations based on the products that the company actually sells. These are all examples of predictive or analytical AI. They might display some intelligence, but they're operating within a system where they have a strictly limited number of possible outcomes. We've used this phrase machine learning a few times already, but we haven't really talked about what it is. We will go a bit deeper in a future video, but for now, it's important to have at least a very basic understanding of what's going on. Machine learning, which is frequently abbreviated to ML, describes systems which learn from data. Machine learning systems identify patterns in data and use those insights to make predictions or decisions. The specifics of these decisions are not explicitly programmed for each task, which is a key part of what makes machine learning so powerful. Deep learning is another important term, which is very closely associated with machine learning. This is essentially an advanced form of machine learning, which leverages a technology called neural networks. Again, don't worry too much about all these new terms in this video. We will cover them again as we move through the course. Deep learning systems use multiple layers of neural networks to offer much greater performance than can be achieved with traditional machine learning techniques. And it's these layers that give large language models their incredible abilities. There is a very deep technical rabbit hole we could go down here. Let's save that for another video. For now, we've done a bit of foundational work and it's time for you to do some work of your own. Your task is to divide each of the examples in this list into narrow versus general purpose AI and generative versus classical AI. In each case, use what you know about these technologies to discuss whether you think society is better off for their existence, or would we be better off if they had never been invented. If you're working alone, you need to pause the video and take some time to write out your answers. If you're going through this as a class, your teacher can pause the video and either work on this as a whole class discussion, in groups, or as individuals if you prefer. Okay, our 6 headings are on screen now. TikTok and Netflix style video suggestions, ChatGPT style chatbots, Google Maps route planning, AI video generators like Sora and VO3, smart speakers like Alexa and Google Home, 11 Lab style voice generators. So it's time to pause the video now and get some answers down on paper. And remember, this is a question for you and your classmates, not for AI. Okay, so let's talk through some possible solutions. First, TikTok and Netflix style video suggestions. You're probably familiar with this. You're watching a video on TikTok or on Netflix, and after it ends, the system suggests other videos for you. This is a classic example of narrow AI. It's optimized for one task. All it does is recommend other videos. And it's classical AI because it's not generating any new content, and it can only recommend other videos that are already in the library of videos on TikTok or on Netflix. In terms of the social impact, we can argue this either way. It helps users to discover relevant content, so maybe it improves user satisfaction, which we could say is good. Equally, maybe we argue that persuading people to spend more time watching videos isn't a great thing. Next, ChatGPT style chatbots. ChatGPT is not just narrow AI, it's considered general purpose AI. That means it can be used across loads of different tasks, like we said earlier. Writing stories, explaining science, helping with code, summarizing text, tutoring maths, the list goes on and on and on. It's also generative AI because it creates new responses instead of just selecting from pre-written answers. Now, is society better off? In many ways, yes. It can help with education, productivity, and creativity, but it can also be misused for cheating, for spreading misinformation, or even for creating harmful content. So, like any powerful tool, it depends how responsibly we choose to use it. Next up, Google Maps. This is still narrow AI. It's built for one main task, which is finding routes and giving directions. It's also classical AI. It relies on logic, rules, existing data like traffic reports and road maps, rather than generating anything new. Now, is it helpful? Most people would say yes. It certainly saves time, it reduces stress, and it helps people get where they need to go. There are some downsides, like traffic being pushed through side streets, but overall, this one's pretty hard to argue against. AI video generators like Sora and VO3, these are narrow AI. They're focused on video creation, but also clearly generative AI because they create entirely new videos from a prompt. They can be used to make animations, realistic footage, or even movie trailers with no actors and no cameras. Are they a good thing? Well, that depends. They could unlock creativity and save costs for small creators or teachers, but they could also be used for deepfakes or to copy someone's style without permission. The technology is impressive, but it needs strong rules and very careful use. Smart speakers like Alexa and Google Home are mostly narrow AI. They're designed to handle voice commands and interact with devices. Some of their functions, like setting timers or playing music, use classical AI. Others, like answering more open-ended questions, are now starting to be powered behind the scenes by generative AI. Are they good for society? Well, they can be helpful, especially for people with disabilities or maybe just busy families. But they do also raise privacy concerns, since they're always listening for a wake word, and companies can collect a lot of data, so again, it's about how they're built and how they're used. You can certainly argue for either side of this one. And finally, 11 Lab style voice generators. This is technology that generates speech based on a sample voice or on pure AI voices. This is narrow AI designed specifically for generating speech, but it's definitely generative AI since it creates new voice clips, sometimes even mimicking real people's voices. Is this good for society? Well, it has useful roles in education, in entertainment, in accessibility, and more, but it can also be misused to impersonate someone or create fake audio. Like many examples of AI, it will likely lead to unemployment in some sectors. So, like with video generators, this is a powerful tool, but it needs safeguards. At the end of today's video, you hopefully know a bit more than you did before about AI. We talked about what it is, computers doing things that used to require human intelligence, and what it isn't. Remember, it's not magic and it's not computers with feelings. Finally, we discussed the good and bad of AI, and we definitely didn't get to the bottom of that conversation. If you're doing this lesson through the Olus portal, you've got a quick quiz to do now. Best of luck with that. Until the next video, I'm Olus. Thanks for watching and goodbye.